This is one of the most beautiful things that I've ever witnessed in my entire life. There are simply no words. Hey everyone, I'm Tim, and I've just finished a 9-month odyssey around Latin America. Now I'm reopening my diaries, and this time I'm bringing you along with me. Week by week, country by country, all the colors, all the craziness, all the food, all the music, and all the splendor. 9 months when each morning was a new adventure. The road was my companion, and Latin America cast its spell on me. This is my Latin America Diaries. Welcome back to Latin America Diaries on today, El Dia de Muertos, the Day of the Dead. To experience the most vivid night in Mexico's calendar, I traveled out of Mexico City and to Morelia, the state capital of Michoacan, about 4 hours drive to the west by bus. Morelia is a grand old historic city of about 1 million people. I was staying in an Airbnb called Casa La Esperanza, which was in the center of the city, across the road from a beautiful old cathedral. Casa La Esperanza is the vision of the Conejo family, whose son Daniel manages the lodge. I love this place so much that I even offered to make a promotional video for them on Instagram. If you want to see it, stay tuned, but I'd like to take this opportunity to please ask you to like this video, subscribe, and hit the bell icon to be notified when I upload new videos from this series. And if you're enjoying what you're seeing, please share my content and tell your friends about it. It would really mean a lot to me. So, I made a video for Casa La Esperanza. Here it is. When I'm traveling, I look for a few key things in accommodation options. Clean, secure, a comfortable bed, a fast internet connection, and good coffee. When I stayed at Casa La Esperanza in Morelia recently, I was glad to discover that it ticks every box. Located in the heart of the historic city center, Casa La Esperanza isn't just comfortable lodging. Downstairs is a cafe which serves the most delicious breakfast and Mexican specialties throughout the day. Make sure that you order the enchiladas and the mango smoothie dusted with cinnamon. All of this is made possible by Daniel and his delightful family who run Casa La Esperanza. They made me feel so welcome, like part of the family. Oh, and Bruno is always sure to greet new visitors too. So if you're headed to Morelia for a comfortable night's sleep or even just a meal, check out Casa La Esperanza. You won't regret it. If you'd like to stay at Casa La Esperanza, you can follow the link in the video description below. And if you're already in Morelia, then you can stop by for a coffee or a meal. Morelia is a beautiful old city that really made me feel like I had arrived in the Mexico of my imagination. There are spectacular old cathedrals, and delicious places to eat. A friend of mine, Goretti, who hails from Morelia and gave me lots of insider advice for while I was there, recommended that I taste gazpacho. Now, this is not the Spanish soup that you're thinking of. It's a concoction of fruit and cheese and lots of other things chopped up, and I videoed myself tasting it. I'm actually in line at the moment for a traditional snack here in Morelia called gazpachos. This is where they're preparing it. I have a feeling that this might be the one that tips me over the edge that I might need flagyl for afterwards, but anyway, we're going to find out in about 12 hours or so. What have I signed up to? I see mango though, that's always a good sign. Okay, so I see mango, pineapple, cheese, and salsa. And those are 4 things that I love separately, but I'm not sure how they're going to go together. Bismillah. I mean, it's interesting. Spicy. Interesting. Sort of spicy, savory, sweet. It's sort of everything, actually. Yeah. I'll keep hitting this. Daniel, who runs Casa La Esperanza, is a singer, and on 2 nights while I was there, he invited me to watch his choir perform in spectacular surroundings. After that, I walked around the town center of Morelia at night, which was all decked out in anticipation of the Day of the Dead. Which brings me to my main purpose for visiting Morelia, and that was to experience the eve of the Day of the Dead in Patzcuaro, a town about 1 hour drive further west from Morelia. It is possible to stay in Patzcuaro for the Day of the Dead. However, when I went to book, the town was almost completely booked out. Apparently, it's quite normal for accommodation in Patzcuaro to book out up to 11 months in advance, such is the draw of this festival. So if you're planning to go there anytime soon, I would say take note. There are plenty of buses that make the journey from Morelia to Patzcuaro. They depart from a bus stand on the western edge of Morelia city. Your accommodation can advise you on how to get there, otherwise Uber works. On the bus to Patzcuaro, I got chatting with the lady sitting next to me. She told me that she was heading back to her hometown for the public holiday. The center of Patzcuaro was closed because of the event, so we got dropped on the edge of the town and we walked into the center together, where she insisted on buying me a dessert. I have just met this lovely lady over here on the bus who has helped guide me into the center of Patzcuaro. ¿Cómo te llamas?
Erendira Miranda Mora. Erendira.
Erendira, so nice to meet you. Mucho gusto, Erendira.
Mucho gusto, igual.
And now we are heading to, apparently, Nivel de Pasta?
Nieve de pasta.
Nieve de pasta.
La más famosa en Patzcuaro.
The most famous in Patzcuaro. It's a type of dessert, postre, ¿no?
Sí, postre.
Okay.
Postre. Mira. Este es mi
Erendira. ¿Es tu nombre? Sí, ok. ¿Es tu tienda? ¿Es tu tienda? No. Okay, so it is time to try this. Nieve
de pasta.
Nieve de pasta.
La original nieve de pasta en Patzcuaro, Michoacan.
I have no idea what I'm about to taste, but let's see.
Good.
Really good. It's almost like fudge and ice cream made a baby. Wow, that's okay. And now I'm dripping. Right. Muchas gracias. So a couple of things to know. The Day of the Dead is officially the 2nd of November. However, the main celebration or commemoration of it occurs on the eve of the Day of the Dead, that is the night of the 1st, going into the morning of the 2nd of November. Secondly, there are plenty of places that you can observe this. Every town in Mexico has its own unique way of commemorating the Day of the Dead. And because of visitor numbers to Patzcuaro skyrocketing in recent years, many people are advising visitors to head to smaller towns in other parts of the country. If you'd prefer to stay in a city, then Oaxaca City is supposed to be a pretty special commemoration. Finally, I booked in with a tour company, Nana Kutsi, who would take me around to 3 locations that night. Janitzio Island in the middle of a lake, a village on the eastern outskirts of Patzcuaro, and another small village, 30 minutes drive to the west of Patzcuaro. I wouldn't usually book in with a tour, however, in this case, I'm so glad that I did. The queue to get onto the boat to get out to the island was at least 200 meters long. However, when we arrived there, we were taken straight to the front of the line onto a boat that was already organized. Additionally, getting to the two cemeteries in villages outside of the center of Patzcuaro in the middle of the night amid the droves of people observing the event would have been pretty challenging. I think I'm a pretty intrepid traveler, but I doubt that I would have seen as much as I did, especially the two villages, had I been traveling by myself that night. I've included a link for Nanakuzi in the video description below. And so it begins. I arrived in Patzcuaro mid-afternoon and had a couple of hours to wander the quaint old town before it was time for our tour to meet at 6 p.m. Here I have the pan de muerto, which is the bread of the dead, and it is a specialty in Mexico around this time of year, and it's like basically a sweet bun which is infused with orange, I think orange essence or something, I'm not sure, but it tastes orangey. It's covered in sugar, as you can see, but on the top are these things which are supposed to look a bit like bones. So anyway, I'm in Patzcuaro. This is the Day of the Dead, and this is the bread of the dead, so it is time to taste. Here we go. Oh, it's actually really good. The like the flavor of the orange that you get, it sort of comes in afterwards. It's like an aftertaste. It's lovely. Alright, I will be finishing this. That's delicious. It's sort of like an orange blossom essence or something like that. I can't quite put my finger on it, but it's delicious. If you would like to try your hand at making pan de muerto, check the recipe at the link that I've included in the video description below. The Mexican marigold, or Aztec marigold as it's also known, native to Mexico, is the flower of the Day of the Dead. It represents remembrance, but also happiness, and a multi-million-dollar industry exists to ensure that there are enough fresh flowers grown every year for this very special event. I arrived at the pickup point for Nanakuzi a little bit early, so I had time to sit down and discuss the meaning and significance behind El Dia de Muertos. The Day of the Dead, as we see it today in Mexico, is somehow a combination of two different holidays. One of them is All Saints' Day, or All Hallows' Eve, which is a Christian, particularly Catholic, day, which occurs on the night of the 1st of November and on the 2nd of November, and it's a day to remember the dead, people who have passed, and so on. And that actually is the basis of Halloween as we see it today, although obviously Halloween is, as we see it today, and particularly the global, particularly commercial Americanized version of Halloween, is a far cry from the religious festival of Catholicism of All Hallows' Eve or All Saints' Day. So the Spanish colonizers, being Catholic as they were, come to Mexico and colonize the country, but then discover that the people who already live here, the Aztec, the Maya, and so on, they already have their own way of honoring the dead. And sort of the fusion of the traditional Mesoamerican or Mayan, Aztec, the traditional Mexican way of honoring the dead, combined with the Catholic tradition of All Hallows' Eve or All Saints' Day to remember the dead. It's the combination of that sort of creates the unique Day of the Dead that we see here in Mexico today. But then it's important to remember that this is not exactly Halloween, because Halloween, first of all, happened last night on the 31st of October. And then the second point is also that Halloween, the modern version of Halloween, as many people see it, is very much a commercial thing. You know, dress up, go trick-or-treating, have a party with friends, this kind of thing. Day of the Dead is quite different. El Dia de Muertos, the Day of the Dead, is actually the day that many Mexicans believe that their relatives, their pets, everyone who has been in their lives and died in the past, their spirits come back to visit them tonight. And tonight and tomorrow, but especially tonight. And so therefore it's not sort of, it's actually quite deep and meaningful. It's not a party like Halloween is. It's quite different. That said, there is still something of a festive atmosphere, and that's because although they are remembering the dead, they're not necessarily mourning, because it's like their relatives and their pets and the people that they've known through their entire lives are coming back to visit them. So I mean, if your relative was coming back to visit and you had one more chance at actually meeting them, you would welcome them. You wouldn't be sitting around being all sad. You'd actually welcome them and be happy that they were coming back for the evening. So therefore, I mean, the Day of the Dead is a sad day, but it's also a day of remembrance, and it's also somehow a happy day as well. It's a strange mix of the three, and the dressing up and everything is all part of it. Traditionally, this is a moment when families would come together and they would spend time praying, and they would visit cemeteries to sort of hopefully be there when their relative spirits came back to visit, and so on. So I mean, that parade on Sunday was lots of fun, don't get me wrong, but it was very much something that was put on for the city, because traditionally this is something which happens sort of in neighborhood streets and often at home and so on. Also, I am obviously going off script for all of this. I'm sort of ad-libbing it, so this is based on, like, to the best of my knowledge, but if I have missed anything or if I have misrepresented anything about El Dia de Muertos in Mexico, please do let me know. Please be kind when you let me know, but please do let me know, and I will happily correct that information. And then we were off. With a pan de muerto in one hand and a shot of mezcal in the other, our van trundled off towards the wharf, where we arrived just as night fell. We only spent about 5 minutes in the queue before being ushered onto the boat, which would take us across the lake to Janitzio Island. The boat powered off into the brackish darkness before rounding a corner, and the island came into view. I have to say that, like, being on this boat and then going off into the night on the lake, it really sets the scene. And I know that it's not designed for this, actually, because I mean, obviously the people who are living on this island have just been doing this for centuries, but there is just something about, you know, that we're leaving sort of the town of Patzcuaro back there, getting on a boat and then voyaging into the night to get to the other side. It's almost like a bridge between, you know, the living and the dead, if you like. Especially if you've seen the movie Coco, then you'll get the reference. But yeah, I mean, like, even that aside, Disney movies aside, it's so atmospheric. The lake is surprisingly vast, and at first the island appeared as a glowing mound on the horizon. But as we approached, we began to realize how magical it really is. All the way up, from the water to the summit, glittering lights illuminated the island, culminating in a giant statue of Jose Maria Morelos. Morelos was a Mexican priest, statesman, and military leader who was active in Mexico's independence movement in the early 1800s. I haven't even landed on the island yet, and this already might be one of the most incredible things I've ever done. As we neared the shore, a sort of calm reverence fell upon the boat. We knew we were about to experience something very special. Landing on Janitzio, there was a busy, party-like atmosphere. But then we began our slow climb towards the island cemetery, the focal point for its Day of the Dead remembrance. As we climbed, our excitement built, but somehow so did our appreciation of this moment. I can't speak for others in the group, but for me, I already felt like I was a world away from the party atmosphere at the dock. And then we were there. We filed into the graveyard, cameras at the ready. The cemetery revealed itself slowly. The first view was of a couple of graves adorned with marigolds, photos, and candles. Then some more. Then, a few bends in the course later, the whole scene came into view. Cut out of the side of the mountain, hemmed in by a cliff, and facing out over the dark lake, it was a sight to behold. A small church in the corner of the graveyard played host to small groups who would chant and pray. I always try to travel ethically, and part of that is minimizing the impact which my visit might have on local people, ordinary regular people who are just trying to go about their daily lives. I'm still unsure about my feelings about the number of people traipsing through the graveyard that night. And before anyone says it, I'm totally aware that I was one of them. At the very least, I try my best to get consent from anyone who features in my photos or videos. It's simply basic respect. After walking through the cemetery and losing track of the rest of the group, I started to make my way up to the giant statue on the top of the island. Patzcuaro is about 2,100 meters above sea level, and I was out of shape, so this was low-key exhausting. And then I headed back to the wharf for our meeting time of 11:30 p.m. and our boat back to the mainland. We piled back into the van and started making our way to the village of Tzurumutaro. It's a small village, only about 5 kilometers from the center of Patzcuaro, but in the traffic that night it took us about 30 minutes. Good luck finding public transport. At the Panteon Comunitario Tzurumutaro, we arrived at about 1 a.m. and made our way through the village cemetery. It gives me chills to think about this even now. It was truly spectacular, even more so than the island perhaps. The graves, the displays, it was all so elaborate. Perhaps because there were fewer tourists here. And I got to sit and chat, off camera, with some of the locals who were spending a night, hopefully with their dearly departed. Okay, I can honestly say that this is one of the most beautiful things that I've ever witnessed in my entire life. There are simply no words. By 3 a.m. we were on the road again and on our way to the village of Arocutin. It was late, and due to the altitude it was cold and foggy, eerie almost. Parking on the side of the road on the edge of town. Again, road closures for the event. It was a 300-meter walk up to the Panteon Arocutin, a hilltop cemetery with a chapel. Perhaps it was later in the night, perhaps a smaller village, or perhaps it was just the energy there, but this place was different again. It was magical, quiet, and strangely, happily solemn, serene, dreamlike. Outside, some volunteers were serving up a treat for visitors. Oh.
Gracias,
Es para que vuelvan.
para que regresen otra vez.
Okay, this is going to be an experiment. It's pumpkin and it's been stewed in sugar water. That's not what I expected, but it's really good. So I'm now on my way back to the tour bus for the transfer back to the starting point, which is a hotel in Patzcuaro. What can I say? I mean, truly at a loss for words. And I guess the only words, I mean, it was ethereal. It was enchanting, I guess is the right word for it. I'm going to finish up here tonight. We made our way back to Patzcuaro, where the tour ended at about 5 a.m. I have no regrets taking a tour or choosing Nanakuzi, especially because they encourage responsible tourism, and that's something that I believe is so important when visiting Patzcuaro or anywhere for the Day of the Dead, where you have thousands of tourists descending and hoping to catch a glimpse of what is ultimately a family occasion centered on remembrance. Back in Patzcuaro, the traffic had died down and it was busy only in the very center of the town. Some of the people in the group headed back to their hotel in Patzcuaro where they were staying, and the rest of us headed towards the bus stand to head back to Morelia, Mexico City, or elsewhere. But the story doesn't end there, because when I arrived back in Morelia at about 7 a.m. and returned to Casa La Esperanza to sleep, I realized that I had dropped the key to the lock on my room somewhere on Janitzio Island in the middle of the night. Now, luckily, this was my lock that I was carrying with me. It wasn't the hotel's one, so it wasn't quite the embarrassment that it could have been, but still incredibly inconvenient. I still had to figure out a way to jiggle a door open and let myself into sleep. And later in the morning, I asked Daniel if he had a spare set of bolt cutters. Yep, follow me for expert travel advice and hacks. That night, after I went padlock shopping, I made my way back to the main cathedral in the center of Morelia to watch the light and fireworks display, which occurs every Saturday night to the tune of Mexican artist Carlos Rivera's hit song Recuérdame. You might know Recuérdame as Remember Me. It was written and sung for Disney Pixar's animated film Coco, which centers on the Day of the Dead. Recuérdame is the Spanish version of the English song, and although it was written and sung for a Disney movie, it has become a favorite and a staple in Mexico in October and November. And then it was time to leave. Morelia, Patzcuaro, and Michoacan generally had been very, very kind to me. And after not really catching the vibe in Mexico City, I was seduced and bowled over by the splendor and sheer beauty of El Dia de Muertos in this very special part of the country. And next on my list was an equally magical city, Oaxaca. For that, you'll need to subscribe and tune in again next time, because that's next week in my Latin America Diaries.